health care coverage next year.
CBO's job is to advise Congress on budgetary matters, and to qualify it has to save $2 billion. It saved $335 billion more than it needed to. That's the headline.
It should abolish the Congressional Budget Office. It is a totally dishonest, disgustingly wrong.
We disagree strenuously.
I think if you read this entire report, I'm pretty encouraged by it, and it actually exceeded my expectations.
You can't read? No problem. You can teach anyway. Literacy tests for teachers in New York are now officially a thing of the past.
A major nor'easter has begun to lash the East Coast. The storm could dump up to 18 inches of snow.
I need somebody help, not just anybody, so much younger than today.
Okay, good morning song. I like it. We've got some shovel-ready jobs here in the New York City area today. If you've got a shovel, we're ready to get dug out.
Right. Speaking of, how's your wife dealing with it this morning?
You know what? I'm not going to wake her up and tell her there's stuff to do. But the good news is my son is home from college.
Perfect. So
there's some YouTube videos on how to shovel. Here's the thing about your son and your wife. Your son will actually get up after your wife. That's just the way college kids are. He will get up around 1 o'clock this afternoon. But I have two Great Pyrenees who I guess who just enjoy the snow.
They'll go out. They're so big they'll melt the snow when they go out for their potty break.
They'll actually go out there. So
this is why Brian decided to get into morning television, so he didn't have to shovel the snow.
Sure enough, I go home and I got the calls like, listen, it's going to start early. You better come back early. And I just looked at my wife and I go, I guess I gotta go. He's like, there you go again. Time to make the donuts. Anyway, 50 million Americans are impacted by the big storm. We're here. We've got somebody in the Weather Center who's going to tell you what the day is going to look like. But first, we're going to start with the big news story, and that is this. The White House firing back at the budget report, estimating that millions of Americans will lose health insurance under the Republican plan as it is right now. But are there more to those numbers? As critics jump on that, it also shows that Obamacare's replacement will reduce the federal deficit by over $300 billion. What are we to believe?
Our chief national correspondent, Ed Henry, has all the facts for you, Brian. He is live at the nation's capital breaking down the numbers for you and your family. Hey, Ed.
Good morning, guys. You're absolutely right. The president lashing out. He's fighting back over this CBO report that could be quite damaging to his efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare. First of all, pointing out, yes, the CBO numbers do say that a lot of people will lose insurance. It also says that the deficit will come down big time, a lot more perhaps than expected. And the president, before the report even came out, was saying, look, the media only focuses on the positive effects of Obamacare, but doesn't focus on what he called the victims of Obamacare, saying people lost their plans, people lost their doctors. The president also noting that the Aetna CEO recently pointed out the current law is in a, quote, death spiral. So the president says he has a plan to fix it. Let's take a look at what the CBO is saying about what that Republican plan would do. Basically saying that before Obamacare, you can see on the far left there were 57 million people without insurance. Now about 27 million people who do not have insurance. The red line shows that over the next 10 years, about 24 million more people will lose insurance, according to the CBO, if the Republican plan becomes law. So that red line sharply goes up. But interesting, that blue line across there, with the existing law, you'll still have well over 20 million people who don't have any insurance at all. Democrats don't talk about that. The president says he has several phases to this new law that will cover more people. Watch.
The House plan will expand choice, lower costs, and ensure health care access for all. We're negotiating with everybody. It's a big, fat, beautiful negotiation. And I think ultimately the big beneficiary will be the American people.
Now, the storm is already impacting the president's lobbying efforts. He was going to have some conservatives over for bowling and pizza. That's been pushed back, as you noted earlier. And also, the House Budget Committee was supposed to meet tomorrow to mark up their version of all of this. That's now been pushed back till at least Thursday, which actually could help the president, because there are a lot of conservatives from the Freedom Caucus on the House Budget Committee who want to kill this plan altogether. Maybe an extra day or so will give them a little bit more time to lobby, guys.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. Well, the good news is everybody in Washington's talking about let's reduce the deficit, and this does turn it down the other way, saves $335 billion over the next 10 years or so. But here's the bad thing, and that's, remember back in the olden days when the Democrats rolled out that commercial against Paul Ryan, where you saw Paul Ryan pushing grandma off the cliff? Mm-hmm. Well, just imagine. The new ad will have Paul Ryan pushing 14 million grandmas off the cliff.
The reason that number drops, though, if you look at the facts, it's because you're not penalized if you decide not to take the Obamacare, is that what we're calling it now? If you don't take affordable American health care, if you don't take it, you're not penalized like you were under Obamacare. So that's why you see the drop.
Yeah, that would add up to those numbers. Just real, that was AARP that did that, and they came out and are condemning this. So Paul Ryan throwing people off cliffs last time, and now the AARP is dead set against this before it was even done. Meanwhile, Senator Tim Kaine said, yeah, the numbers change because there's no mandate, because people have the freedom not to sign up for health care. It's their decision. That's still not good enough for Senator Tim Kaine.
I don't get that argument, so we shouldn't care about it. You know, I don't think a nation that had 45 million uninsured people was a good thing, either for our economy or for our healthcare system. And so if they're saying, oh, well, who cares? They can go back to being uninsured again. I view that as a negative of their plan, not something to be indifferent about.
But the part of their plan is not telling the American people, you better do this, you got to be fined, you better do that, you got to be fined. So he's going to do that. Well, if those 45 million people are choosing not to do that, why do we have to go make them grab onto a program they're choosing not to get on?
The only problem with them not choosing to be a part of the system, does it make prices go up for the people who do need it, who do need the care? And if they get in a pinch and they need health care, do we all pay for them?
The hospitals get money for those people, like illegal aliens who they treat.
You walk into the emergency room.
The cost curve bends down after the transition period in 2020. Healthcare premiums actually go down 10%. Anyway, more on this in a little bit. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. You know, ever since the election, it has been a narrative where the only reason Donald Trump won was because the Russians hacked the election and cost Hillary the thing, right? Well, now, and ever since then, it's been like, look at this Trump advisor. He had contacts with the Russians, up and down. Well, now it has been revealed that apparently Hillary Clinton's aides as well had ties to the Russians and talked to the Russians as well. Listen to this soundbite from a Putin aide.
Did he have similar meetings with Clinton campaign officials? Because I don't know of any.
Well, if you look at some people connected with Hillary Clinton during her campaign, you would probably see that he had lots of meetings of that kind.
So you can see that he probably had a lot of meetings with Hillary Clinton's people, too. But did you hear that last night on the mainstream media? Look at this. ABC, NBC, CBS, 0 minutes of coverage on that story.
Right. It was stunning because Fareed Zakaria hates Donald Trump's existence, loves President Obama, and did not want that answer. So I was listening to that actually on Sirius Radio, and I'm saying to myself, I wonder I wonder what they're going to do with this. And evidently, yeah, they didn't make a big deal of that. But they did say, you're embarrassing yourself, America, by this self-humiliation on what you're doing. You're the strongest country in the world. There's no way someone can affect your elections. This is the Kremlin spokesperson. So I know you could take a lot of what they say with a wink and a nod, but it sounds very logical.
But look what they did cover last night. They covered the wiretapping evidence, saying, Mr. Trump, where is the evidence that your phones were wiretapped? ABC spent 3 minutes and 10 seconds on it. NBC 2 minutes, and then CBS 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Right, and the headline was the Department of Justice yesterday missed their deadline to turn over all the information they had regarding wiretapping and stuff like that. They've extended that. Also, Sean Spicer made it clear yesterday that when the president tweeted out about wiretapping, he was talking about general surveillance and activities. And that's why that became such a big number on the networks, although the fact that Hillary Clinton's people met with the Russians apparently was not of interest to the mainstream media.
It's not a news story, apparently.
In retrospect, I'm sure President Trump would love those tweets back because it created a firestorm where he didn't need one. However, it was interesting. We talked to the judge 20 minutes ago, and he says his sources tell him they're not going to find anything because it was actually the British intelligence using our NSA that actually did the hacking, and the guy that did it resigned 3 days after Donald Trump was elected. And that was according to multiple sources that he had.
We know from the New York Times that Michael Flynn, who had to resign from his post, was wiretapped. Was he the target of the wiretap? Probably not. It was probably the Russians he was talking to. But nonetheless, somebody in the administration, former administration, or the intel community or somewhere decided to take his name off and then leak it to the press. But he was definitely wiretapped. Generally wiretapped. Who else? We don't know. But obviously that has gotten into the mainstream media, the story of the day. And here we are. Now, everybody's talking about the wiretap story.
Yeah, and wiretap is a 1970s phrase. The electronic surveillance.
Now, right. All right, let's hand it over to Heather, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Heather.
And good morning to you and to everyone at home. We do begin with this extreme weather that we've been watching for you. Take a look at this live scene outside of our studios. This is where this monster blizzard is bearing down 50 million Americans up and down the East Coast, bracing for up to 2 feet of snow, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and devastating coastal flooding. Air travel already crippled. Nearly 6,000 flights canceled or delayed. People also told to stay off the roads if you can. And this is why. This is in Chicago. Snowfall leading to this 30-car pileup. Meteorologist Adam Klotz has the very latest on the storm in just a few minutes, so stay with us. And the president giving the CIA the power to take out suspected terrorists with drone strikes, according to the Washington Journal. It is a complete 180, you may recall, from the Obama administration policy. That only allowed the CIA to locate the target. The military was then put in charge of pulling the trigger. The CIA first using its new authority late last month in a strike on a senior al-Qaeda leader in Syria. And the same SEAL Team 6 who took out Osama bin Laden is preparing to wipe out Kim Jong-un if needed. The North Korea's show of force intensifies, and as a result, the Navy's best of the best is teaming up with South Korea in joint military drills. Now, that is according to a new report. Exercises started earlier this month, and they run until the end of April. The U.S. says that the drills are purely defensive, but the communist country is firing back, saying that they're preparing for an invasion. And finally, make sure that you certainly have the tissues close to you right now. Watch this moment when a 5-year-old little boy finds out that he's about to get a new heart. This will actually save the young boy's life.
I was talking to the doctors a few minutes ago, and they said that, you know how they've been looking for a heart for a long time?
Yes.
I think they found one. I think
I can move tomorrow. Are they going to find a good spot to put it?
Little Ari Schultz was diagnosed with a heart condition before he was even born, and 20 surgeries later, he and his family hope that this one will be the final one. And now he's excited to finally go see, by the way, the Boston Red Sox play at Fenway. So our heart goes out to him. Let's hope that he's going to be okay.
I hope they do something special for him.
Yeah,
that's a classy organization. If they hear about that,
They'll
they will
definitely
do something
special. How wonderful as a mom would that be to hear that your son's life is going to be saved. He said, I hope they find a good place to put it in. So sweet. All right, thank you for that sweet story, Heather. Coming up, good news. Former Obama staffers have found new jobs as watchdogs for President Trump.
And apparently everyone loves this idea.
Free.
But because thanks to Bernie, there's a socialist surge. But it could cost you big time because nothing's for free, just somebody else is paying.
Well, it is a rallying cry for a new generation.
Free.
Oh, we're bringing it back.
Yeah, will a recent surge in socialism threaten the very fabric of our economy? I'm going to ask Stuart Varney. He's the host of Varney and Company and the Fox Business Network. Stuart, what are your thoughts about the fact that there's a growing sentiment in America that we like the idea of socialism?
2 items. There is a party called the Democratic Socialists of America. They are socialists, and their membership tripled after the November election.
That is a new political party.
It's a different political party. Now, Bernie Sanders describes himself as a democratic socialist. He's not a member of that particular party group, but that party group tripled its membership. Right. That shows you something about the sentiment that's going towards the left. Second item, there is a poll which shows that 4 out of 10 30 and under somethings, people under 30, 4 out of 10 have a favorable view of socialism. What the devil's going on
Where does
there?
that come from?
Well, why do you think? Yeah, why is that?
It's hard to say where it comes from, but suffice it to say that I think that Bernie Sanders is now the intellectual, ideological driving force of the Democrat Party.
Sure.
His people have taken over the party,
He's not
dragging
even a
them to the
Democrat.
left.
He's not even in the party.
No, he's a Democrat socialist. And people are not worried about the use of the word socialist. I mean, that's poison to someone like me, but to a young generation it's not. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Here's the thing. I get why they are joining this club. They want stuff for free.
Yes.
We all want stuff for free. But
and they're not making much money right now.
A lot of people realize there is always a cost to that.
Look, it sounds attractive. The socialists want to make America more like Europe. Cradle-to-grave security, forget about the military, and tax the rich. And everybody can have everything that they ever really wanted for free. It doesn't work. The European model is breaking down. I'm a refugee from the European model. Most of them are bankrupt. They're socially divided.
You know what?
They've been in recession for close on 30 years.
I think some of them don't even know what the definition of socialism is. For someone who thinks it's poison, tell the folks who are watching that might be confused why it's poison in your eyes.
It's poison because it does not work. You cannot offer everything to everybody just because they want it, because you can't pay for it. Right. It doesn't grow your economy. It's socially divisive.
It robs you from drive and initiative. And secondly, Governor Cuomo wants to give you free education now, and they're going to do the same thing in California.
The essence of America is individual liberty and freedom.
Sure.
That's what made us what we are. That's what will restore us to prosperity, not the collectivism of socialism of Bernie Sanders.
Look,
that's an opinion.
If you don't have anything, you like the idea of free.
The grass is always greener on the other
no
side. I want what you've got, now give it to me now.
All right.
No such thing as a free lunch.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Stuart.
Meanwhile, have you seen this? Rapper Snoop Dogg taking aim at the president, literally. Did he go too far? And where's the outrage about this video? We got a debate coming up as he shoots that guy.
In a new politically charged video, rapper Snoop Dogg pulls out a gun and shoots a clown version of President Trump. Watch this. So does that video right there cross the line? Here to debate is host of The Blaze, Lawrence Jones, and Democratic strategist, Fox News contributor, Richard Fowler. Thank you both for being with us.
Good to be here. Thanks, Ainsley.
You're welcome. Lawrence, does it cross the line?
Of course. That's the obvious answer, that it crossed the line. To threaten the president or any other American is against the law, and you can be criminally prosecuted for it. But I think the larger conversation is Snoop Dogg having a double standard. He was just on a campaign, a no guns campaign. He often even said this quote in an interview: "I made many mistakes. I've grown. I've learned. I don't feel like guns are necessary." So Snoop Dogg is having a double standard.
And another double standard here, Richard, is he's speaking against police brutality, yet he's aiming a gun at a clown dressed as the president?
Well, if you watch the entirety of the video, Ainsley, thanks for having me. It's a satire about what's wrong with our current culture, is that we have too many guns. Yeah, it's absolutely a satire. If you look at the first half.
Pointing a gun that is threatening the president of the United States.
The entire video and the lyrics of the song actually talk about the idea that we have too many guns in the streets, we have too much police brutality, and we have a double standard coming from this president. The gun is fake, right? That's why there's no bullets coming out of the gun throughout the video in its entirety. What Snoop Dogg is trying to point out to here.
Against guns, Richard. He said
right,
he's against
and that's
guns.
what this video is about.
He also talks about...
Clearly you didn't read the lyrics.
He actually... Yes, I did read the lyrics.
And what does he talk about?
Hold on, Richard. Don't monologue me. He also said in the video that people that have 20 to 30 years because of marijuana is wrong. But he supported Hillary Clinton, which was against the 1994 crime bill.
Richard,
the 1994 crime bill and Schedule I drugs are two different things, sir. Just saying.
Richard, what about the message it teaches our children? There are a lot of youngsters that look up to Snoop Dogg or enjoy his music. What message is it teaching them about guns and violence? And you heard Madonna talking about she has dreams of blowing up the White House. I mean, these celebrities, I know they're doing this for attention, but aren't they going too far?
Well, I can't speak to Madonna, but here's the thing. I think we hear over and over again from the right this ideal of we're too politically correct as a country, and I think you can't have your cake and eat it too. I think what Snoop Dogg is trying to do by this provocative video is point out a problem that we have in our society. Is it politically correct? Absolutely not. But the ideal of it here is he's using his free speech and his artistic right to display a problem that something he believes is a problem.
Hypocritical.
Right, Lawrence.
It's not politically correct, but it's not hypocritical.
One at a time. Lawrence, yes, go ahead.
He has a new show with Martha Stewart, and part of it is to bring unity, to have people with different backgrounds, and to have this conversation. My question would be to Snoop is, how does this unify America?
What would the reaction be right now this morning if it were a clown dressed up as President Obama, Lawrence?
All hell would break loose, and rightfully so, because they're threatening the President of the United States. All hell would break loose.
Richard?
Listen, Donald Trump a couple months ago said that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and still become president of the United States. Was that politically correct? Absolutely not. It was not. But he's still the president of the United States. He also cheered on as people in his rally punch other people in the face. Is it politically correct? No, it's not politically correct, but he's the president.
The question was, what if this were President Obama? What's your response?
My point is that this is a question of political correctness. You don't have to agree with the rhetoric. You don't have to agree with what you saw, but you have to argue that this is protected speech. I'm not saying I'm okay with the rhetoric at all. I'm not saying I'm okay with what we saw what happened to Donald Trump in that video. I'm saying that Snoop Dogg is using non-political correctness to make a point. And clearly he's done it effectively because Lawrence has his panties in a bunch.
How about you condemn what he did then?
I think it's if I'm condemning what he did, I should condemn all indications of political correctness.
Guys, we've heard from both of you. We appreciate you being on the show this morning. We also want to hear from folks at home. Email us. Let us know what you think about that video. friends@foxnews.com. The Congressional Budget Office releasing their report on the replacement for Obamacare, but does it really tell the whole story? White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney is here to respond to that next. And good news, former Obama staffers have found new jobs as watchdogs for President Trump.
Our top story.
There's a giant nor'easter moving up the coast at this hour. We're taking a live look right now outside of our studios where the snow is already coming down.
A brand new video out of the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. The snow is so thick you can't see the pavement in the roads here. Okay, there's the road right there. It is snowpacked.
Right. The Founding Fathers never complained about it, as we see they're symbolized all over Philadelphia. Right now, tens of millions of Americans are bracing for blinding winds and up to 2 feet of snow. But could this whole thing be overblown? Meteorologist Adam Klotz is outside the middle of it all, because that's where he prefers to live his life, in the middle of it all.
In the middle of it all. Yeah, guys, absolutely right. Now, here's what we're dealing with now. We've seen a lot of heavy snow within the last several hours, at least times where it was really coming down, but it's switched to a sleet right now. It's kind of slowing down the totals, so it isn't piling up nearly as quickly at this point, but we are still seeing, it's windy, it's coming down, and that's continuing out here right now. If we take a look at some of our maps, what do we have? Well, 28 degrees here in New York, but that's where you're seeing the freezing rain. But we're right on that freezing rain line. So there's rain just to the south, there's snow just to the north. There are areas seeing really heavy snow right now. New York City's stuck in the middle of it. Wind gusts right around 30 miles an hour. There's spots getting up 35 miles an hour in Atlantic City. These winds have been picking up a little bit in just the last couple of minutes, and you get a really good gust, and that's when it starts to lower our visibility. So wind's still going to be an issue, a big issue here. Maybe folks a little bit further inland seeing heavy snow at this point, but for now, out here it's just the sleet, which actually makes it a little bit more uncomfortable out here on the plaza, guys.
All right, on the plaza where it is sleeting. Adam, thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Meanwhile, the Congressional Budget Office estimating millions will lose insurance under the Republicans' Obamacare repeal bill. And this morning, the White House firing back.
Joining us now is White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney. Now, Mick, we all got a copy of this. We've been reading it this morning. You got a copy, obviously. What'd you learn? What do you like and what do you not like?
First, I just want to say good morning from Washington, where, as you can see, according to the Congressional Budget Office, it's sunny and 75.
And because of that snow, you had to cancel your pizza party tonight, right?
Yeah, no bowling in the executive office building tonight with the folks from the Hill, so the snow ruins a bunch of different things. Look, we expected this to happen. The Congressional Budget Office, we know, and we talked about this for weeks before the report came out, just doesn't do a very good job at counting coverage under proposed insurance plans. I'll give you a specific example, an easy example. Just 3 years ago, when Obamacare was in full swing, 2013, the Congressional Budget Office estimated that by this year, just 3 years later back then, by this year, there'd be about 24 million people on the exchanges.
Right.
There's less than half of that. The CBO is really good at counting money, but we've never understood why people expect them to be really good at counting insurance coverage, and they're just not very good at it.
So one of the things that, I always look for people that aren't blindly partisan. And I put Joe Manchin in that category. And he's somebody, if you're going to get that third phase passed, as you describe it, you're going to need that 60 votes in the Senate. And he's looked at the 25% less spending on Medicaid, and he called it morally wrong and unconscionable, hard-hearted. What's your reaction to that?
I haven't heard that. I'm a little disappointed by that. I think Joe falls into that group of, say, conservative Democrats who know that throwing money after stuff doesn't automatically make it better. Most things in our country can get better quality out of lower cost if we just allow the markets to work. It's why the cell phone that's in my pocket is so much better than it was 5 years ago, but relatively cheaper than it was 5 years ago. Sure. So the simple fact, what I would say to Senator Manchin, who I admire a great deal, is that just because we save money, just because we spend less, doesn't mean we're providing less services. Right. In fact, the exact opposite is true. What we've done in this is what the governors asked us to do, governors from both parties, which is to give the states more control over their own Medicaid so that they can drive their own efficiencies. Everybody wins if we do it properly.
Okay, I know you're a budget hawk. You love the fact that in, 10 years you saved $334 billion. That's real money. That's great. But you're also a politician, and you know the politics of the headlines that say 14 million Americans, no health care, thanks to the Republicans. That's not good.
But I think the people who are on Obamacare, who are really the target here, right, and keep in mind, I was one of them. I was on the exchanges when I was a member of the House. The folks who are on Obamacare know what the problem is, and the problem is they have affordable health insurance. They have completely unaffordable health care. They had the same program I had. Okay, I had a program. I think my deductible at my house was between $12,000 and $15,000 a year. Okay, so there's folks making a lot less money than I was on that exact same plan. They could afford to have the coverage because they got a subsidy for the premium. But when they got sick, they could not go to the doctor. And that's what they want to change, and that's what they're looking for. So the politics of it, look, at the end of the day, you have to assume that good policy is good politics, and the Republican bill is good policy.
Here's something that struck me that I was shocked with. If you are an individual who makes $26,500, it goes down for you. Your premium goes down if you're 21 years old. It goes up a little if you're 40. But if you're 64 years old, that's when you're going to need health care. Your premium right now under Obamacare is $1,700, but it's going to go up to almost $15,000. That's more than half these folks' salary. They can't afford that.
And we saw some other numbers yesterday from the CBO that says, look, the premiums are going to come down over the long term. In fact, I think over the near term. And we're not even sure if the CBO has scored some of the other ideas that are in the bill. We do expect the premiums to come down from competition. We haven't had a chance yet to CBO scores that.
So that might be right. You're not positive.
We've also talked about the other things we can do, what we've talked about in Phase 2, what Tom Price could do to change regulations, Phase 3 to add bills that need 60 votes in the Senate. There's a chance to make this much, much better. We're just not sure yet what the CBO is scoring when they say that, give that exact example.
Liz, everybody knows you're trying to fix a program that's thinking clearly and without politics that is dying. So we get that. Having said that, the winners and losers in this case, according to Politico, which tends not to be in your side, I'll give you that. But it says the CBO says the clear losers will be the older, low-income Americans between 50 and 64, below the Medicare-eligible age. And that translates into Trump voters. If that's correct, that could be a disaster for this president. Is this wrong?
Keep in mind what they're counting. We've said this from the very beginning. The CBO is measuring against the wrong thing. To that same group of voters, go ask them. Go find a 55-year-old person who's on Obamacare right now and ask them if they can afford to go to the doctor. They're going to tell you without exception that they can't. And they know that our program will give that to them.
Nick, do you also know that Freedom Caucus, like nobody else, and they're going to have their vote delayed, but they're the most conservative in the House. Their committee's going to be voting next. Can you count the numbers for us? How many votes do you have?
I'm a little bit familiar with the Freedom Caucus, being a founding member of that. We're talking to all the folks. Listen, we're talking to folks in the center of the party. We're talking to folks in the right wing of the party. What we do know is this. The framework bill, which is what's moving through the process now, can get better. We're talking with folks about amendments they'd like to see, amendments we'd like to see to make the bill a little better. That's the ordinary course of business when it comes to creating a piece of legislation, including something this complex. So I'm absolutely positive by the time we get done, we're going to have a bill that can pass the House.
Mick, you just said make it a little better. That makes it sound like the framework is pretty much the bill. There are some people who would like to change big parts of it, but you just made it sound as if maybe that's not going to happen.
Well, what's the framework? Repeal as much as you can, given these arcane rules that we have to deal with in the Senate, and replace as much of Obamacare as you can, given those same rules. Keep in mind, the Democrats in the Senate, for a brief period back in 2010, 2009, had 60 votes in the Senate. Those things we cannot undo during this reconciliation process. We'll have to figure out a way to do that in phase 3. We are undoing all of the repeal that we can now, replacing as much as we can now, and that's what I say when I say that's the framework. That's when the president supports, and that's when we're looking forward to passing the House.
All right, Mick Mulvaney, a lot of people's health care is in your hands, so we'll all be watching and reporting. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, y'all.
From 72 and sunny Washington, D.C., according to the CBO.
All right, Heather Childers, you have the latest breaking news. Hi, Heather.
Yes, good morning to you and to everyone at home. We begin with former Obama staffers launching a watchdog group to hound the president. The organization, called American Oversight, seeking to track the administration's ethics and expose potential conflicts or fraud. The group is targeting federal agencies, including HUD and education. American Oversight claims to be nonpartisan, despite some of its top officers having some deep ties to the Obama administration. And a backyard ice rink that some parents built for their children to stay active in the winter must go. That is the message from a town in Pennsylvania. This is the second winter that the family made the hockey rink, but it didn't sit well with authorities apparently this year. In a letter, the town's engineer says that it's a violation which could cause some problems. The family did appeal that decision but lost. And from internet laughingstock to polar explorer, Bodie McBoatface, remember, is back and ready for her maiden voyage. The high-tech yellow submarine set to begin its first mission this week, exploring a deep current in Antarctica. The story went viral last year when the British government asked the internet for help naming a new research ship. Well, they decided that Bodie McBoatface was better suited for the sub instead. They're about to take off. There's a look at your headlines.
At least they still use the name.
Right. Sorry about standing up. But I'm just saying, when was that? I didn't even see that.
It was a big story.
It really was?
It was a big story, Brian. Where were you? They asked people to name the boat, and they came up with Bodie McBoatface.
It was a joke that went viral.
That stopped.
And now it's a sub. All right, meanwhile, it's 17 minutes before the top of the hour. Coming up, President Trump delivering on yet another campaign promise, donating his presidential salary to charity. But there's a twist. The question is, which charity?
Right. Have a dramatic pause like Steve.
Okay. Bernie Sanders supporters threw a wrench in Hillary Clinton's presidential plans, and they aren't done yet. They could do Democrats in for good. We'll see.
Who works in that building and is president of the United States is paid $400,000 a year. Before he was elected, Donald Trump said, if I am elected, I will donate my salary to charity. Yesterday, Sean Spicer, during an exchange, was asked, okay, what's going on with that? Listen.
Has President Trump donated his paycheck from the month of February like he promised to do during the campaign?
The president's intention right now is to donate his salary at the end of the year, and he has kindly asked that you all help determine where that goes. The way that we can avoid scrutiny is to let the press corps determine where it should go. He will, in all seriousness, I think his view is he made a pledge to the American people. He wants to donate it to charity, and he'd love your help to determine where it should go.
That's
crazy. That is so funny. He's asking the press corps to decide where he should, at the end of the year, donate his
What
money.
are you trying to do, a gotcha question with that? Like, oh, no, Donald Trump took the money and he spent it at Gimbel's.
Okay, so now he's putting it, turning it around onto the press corps. You're going to complain about what I do with my money? You tell me what I should do with the money. Here's the thing, though. For the most part, the White House press corps leans way to the left. So what are the chances that they're going to say, okay, Mr. President, donate the $400,000 to Planned Parenthood?
Or to the Democratic Socialist Party.
Yeah.
Where do you think he'll do it? St. Jude, maybe? His son used to serve on the board there.
Folds of Honor is a great charity
one.
that we certainly support on this program.
To the military? That'd be great. We'll see. Maybe he'll divide it up.
That would be great as well, because when he did not go to that debate and instead raised, I think, $6 or $10 million for charity, he gave it to various military organizations. And I do believe Folds of Honor got $250,000 from Mr. Trump.
That'd be wonderful. All right, next on the rundown, Bernie Sanders supporters threw a wrench in Hillary Clinton's presidential plans, and they aren't done yet. Our next guest is a former Sanders staffer and says his supporters could do Democrats in for good.